Hello, everyone.
Welcome back to another episode.
For those of you who are new, I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Vanessa.
And this is Refract. Okay, all right. The structure of today, we are going to talk primarily about Romans 14. Romans 14 is called The Weak and the Strong, and we're going to talk about our interpretation, but also the contextual circumstance in which it was written by Paul. Our interpretation is it is about judgment, and it's about basically how to live in unity and peace with people who are at different stages of their journey, their spiritual journey, or you could really apply it
to like anything, really.
To anything.
Yeah.
So another part of today is we also just want to acknowledge the last episode, which was gender roles, and that was a difficult podcast to film.
Mm-hmm. Our intention was not for it to come out of judgment, but it seemed like it just didn't come out of love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we said, truthful things, but we didn't have love.
Yeah, and our hearts were not, like our hearts didn't feel like we thought about other people's feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
I feel like we did, because we did film that podcast twice, and we were aware that this is a delicate topic. However, still the second time we filmed it, there was just like a few points in the podcast where
they were unnecessary.
Yeah, we're just like dropping these truth bombs and like kind of deal with it. And even though some people might justify that and say it's okay, the more that, at least I know for me, the more that like I do read into this and see what God has to say about like truth, the more I realize that like it's not the heart of Christ to go in, drop a truth bomb and be like, deal with it. Like, he's compassionate and he'll walk with you through it, and that is what we want to do here. Some words did impact people, and I'm not gonna stand here and say, well, like, suck it up, like, no, like life is so short and we're so loved, and that's the opposite of what we want to do. Like, yeah, I don't want to justify it.
Yeah And we love everybody. Like, we don't,
well, we really try to.
But we don't judge. That's not what we were trying to do.
Yeah. So I want to talk about love and truth a little bit before we get into Romans 14, and it will tie in. So love and truth are always bound together. One without the other is empty. So if I consider each one individually, I think about a relationship where it's like only truthful, and you call someone out for what they're doing, or you give them these moral facts or these universal truths, and you're like, well, you can't really get mad because I'm telling you the truth. But you have no concern or little concern for how the words you're saying are impacting the person on the receiving end. So classic, some people have probably heard it, Warren Wiersbe, I probably butchering that, says, truth without love is brutality, and love without truth is hypocrisy. I know that I've been this person to drop truth. I know you can probably say that I've been insensitive sometimes, where I just like say things to people. And maybe we've both been in this. What do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say I definitely have multiple times, and it's something that I'm still working on. Definitely has been a work in progress.
Yeah.
I think it's just hard sometimes. You want to like share the truth, and you forget about other people's feelings.
And it's
because it's like intrusive, realistically.
Yeah. Intrusive is a whole other thing. Yeah. That like we just like, oh, it's just an intrusive thought. It's like so justified.
Intrusive thoughts are from the enemy.
Imagine Jesus just like, sorry, that was an intrusive thought. Like, people be like, what the heck's wrong with you? Granted, we are human, so there's grace for that. So anyways, we don't do any good. Like, it actually, if we say something in truth without love, it actually negates the whole validity, the value, the worth of what you're saying, even if what you're saying is true and good. If it's not loving, it's not useful at all. So yeah. And again, Jesus did not act this way. The Spirit doesn't convict us and then leave us unequipped and alone to deal with the convictions. He remains with us, providing, protecting, and leading us in love and truth. And then the second part of this is love without truth. So you're being like super loving, but you're kind of like affirming the person. Like someone's doing something wrong. Yeah. You're like, no, it's okay. Yeah. Like, it's okay. Like, you're doing so good. Or like, look at this person over there. Like, you're doing so much better than them. But that is also like so empty, and that person is doing no good for you either. It's really easy to fall in one category, and it does take a lot of effort to speak both in truth and love. Just to kind of like close up my thoughts here, we are called to be Christ-like, and acting in one or the other, acting either in love or in truth, is childlike. We are called to be Christ-like. Jesus was never described only as loving or only as truthful. He was described as the way, the truth, and the life. Those things are always tied together, right? Again, in 1 Corinthians 13:2, Paul writes, if I understand all mysteries and all knowledge, that's truth, but have not love, I am nothing. And then truth without love, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. They're just always connected. There are two virtues, and they are always tied together. And the bottom line here also is just outlined in John 3, verse 18. Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and in truth. I feel like for that topic, it's a work in progress for us. It's a work in progress for me for sure. And I think you could say about that topic, we walked in truth without love, which is useless and empty. I just described it's like a car without wheels. Like, it has everything. It's like, in theory, like, it's good, but it's not going anywhere. It's really not useful for anything. And so I do apologize for claiming truths and putting opinions out there without love and concern for how it lands. I just really do hope that we can still remain in conversation with people, and this doesn't just like, turn people off of Jesus, because that's literally heartbreaking. But yeah, have grace for us as well, because the last thing we want to do is sit here and just put ourselves on some sort of pedestal and be perfect, because we're really not. Shall we segue into Romans 14?
Yes.
Okay. Also, someone really special gave me this,
and this, guys, like, if you guys were to see our rooms, this is our rooms. This is the vibe. This is her room, and this is my room.
Color scheme. It's your outfit too.
Yeah, it is my outfit.
I didn't wear green, but you see me wear green before, but yeah.
Yeah. It's just
so cute. We're going to talk about Romans 14. Okay.
Yes, we're going to talk about Romans 14.
Yeah. It's called The Weak and the Strong. And when I read it, I was like, it's the perfect descriptor of judgment and how to act in peace and in love and in unity. And it's like a wake-up call, but in a loving way. So I guess it's effective. Crazy. Go and read it if you want. We'll read a bit out of it. But
it's good. It's really good.
Yeah, I remember we brought the Bible to you and I'm like, read this.
And I'm like, my job is just up.
Yeah. We were like dying. We were sitting in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I was sitting on the toilet. She's sitting on the floor. And I'm just like dyeing her hair. Like,
14.
Yeah, she's just like, wow. It was good.
The words. Yeah, but we're going to share our interpretation from it when we read about it.
Yeah.
And then we'll share the context.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Context meaning just historically the circumstance in which it's placed and like who this chapter is being written to. And if you're new to reading the Bible, even me, like I'm technically not new to reading the Bible, but like consistently in a more disciplined way, really like actually looking into studying it. Yeah. I would encourage anyone who's curious about the Bible or like the meaning to do some research, like easy website like Bible Reference. I know that's where I read like a lovely interpretation of this chapter, and just other websites like that. They're really helpful with understanding like the time in which it was written, and what it was actually talking about. And then the cool thing about that is you can apply certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Most things, honestly. I just don't want to make any claims about this because I'm still learning, but you can still like apply it to like every like modern day life, because like sin is sin.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes like you can just read the Bible, but you won't understand the context behind it. So I think that's important too, is if you're new to it, studying the Bible.
Shoot, let's read verse 2.
Okay.
Verse 2 to 4.
Okay. One person's faith allows him to eat anything, but another whose faith is weak eats only vegetables. The one who eats everything must not treat with contempt the one who does not, and the one who does not eat must not judge the one who does, for God has accepted them. Who are you to judge someone else's servant? To their own master. Servants stand or fall, and they will stand, for the Lord is able to make them stand. If you guys don't know what contempt means, it means regarding someone as inferior, worthless, or beneath you.
Initially when you're reading that.
Initially when I was reading that, I thought, do not judge anyone based on their walk with Christ. God is the only one that can judge. And like who am I to judge for others, for other people the way that they walk with Jesus? Like it's not my job to convict someone, right? So definitely reading that also, like, it made me feel like don't judge, but also act with love and grace. Because I feel like if you don't have love and grace, it's so easy to judge. Do you know what I mean?
If you don't have love and grace, it's easy to judge. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's like not easy to just have love and grace.
No, it's not easy. No, it's not. But it's important to act with love and grace.
How, this might be just a segue question, but just like, because I can just imagine people being like, well, okay, great, first step, have love and grace. But like, do you know how you, and I know you're still on your journey, but just like how you came to be able to act in love or grace?
Convictions, getting humbled. Convictions, I think, were a huge thing for me.
Like you were giving things to God and convict, like...
Yes, I was giving things to God, was feeling convicted, and getting humbled in so many different ways. And it just gave me more of a reason to act more with love, because
like you were
like he's showing you how loved you are,
even though you're like not happy with the way you're acting, or like you've done something wrong. And you realize that he just gets you out of anything. Like he just, like, the more you study scripture, the more you spend time with the Lord and know him and learn how to have his heart, you have so much love to give because you feel so loved. Yeah. It's hard to have love when you don't know him. Yeah. The knowledge of God is love. It's so true, and I agree, it is so hard to put into words because it's an action. It is 100%, yeah. So like it's hard to be like, well, this is how. Like, this is how you love more. I can point out a lot of things that I have completely different perspective in than I did last year. Yeah. And it's all because of the Lord and his love. And you just can't put it into words. You just have to know him and spend time with him. Yeah. That's so hopeful. And the grace will come with that. Yeah. The grace will come with that. Yeah. I feel like the love comes first. Because it's really not easy to have grace, sorry. But for some people, I don't know. But anyways, we are all different and have different perspectives, and God made us all unique. We aren't meant to be all on the same path at the same time. Nor are we meant to have the same convictions. So just
we're not called to judge. Only God could judge.
Yeah.
So don't judge others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah.
I just want that thing you said just about like being changed because you've been given love. I feel like is so hopeful, and it might be hopeful maybe for someone who's farther along in their journey who is already like, okay, I want to look into Christ and like see what this is. It is hopeful because what God's word says is true, and like your journey is true, and the truth of like what has happened to you is true. So it can give other people hope when they see that like you have changed, and that's just your reality now. And yeah, it takes time, but it happens. And your heart will change. It's just, it doesn't happen always overnight. It can be a slow process, and it's hard, but it's good.
Yeah, definitely.
And Jesus walks with us during that. He's not just giving truth and leaving. He's with us in truth and love. Yeah.
Yeah. What I really liked about that verse too is the one who eats everything must not treat with contempt. The one who does not and the one who does not eat everything must not judge someone else. Yeah, again, like just because someone has convictions that you don't doesn't mean that you can judge them, doesn't mean that we're fighting for right or wrong, right? Just because they're eating fruits and you're eating meat.
Yeah. That's what it addresses.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that they're living a better life with Christ than you are. That's, yeah, again, we're all on different paths, and yeah, it's important to not fight what is right and wrong, because nobody's perfect. Nobody is. And we're never going to be at this perfect time where you're never sinning, and yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like, that's like verse 1 where it says, accept the one whose faith is weak without quarreling over disputable matters. And that stuck out to me as well, because it's the fact that it's do not quarrel over like disputable matters. And that's what this chapter is about. It's like, do not get in a quarrel over things that are kind of in the gray area, because usually when there's things that are in the gray area, there's no like objective right or wrong. God is just, the Holy Spirit is convicting people at different points in time. And if I'm like, listen, like a real life example, okay, listen, I really don't think I can listen to that music anymore. And then I'm sitting across from another Christian and they're like, well, I listen to it. I can't be like, well, you're bad or you're weak or whatever.
You're going to have different convictions than I will. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? But I think it's also so important to keep your convictions to yourself, just between you and the Lord, because you can't force those upon anybody. It's just, that's something to think about as well. And if you think about that you feel right to share it with people because it comes out of love, just think about, I don't know, think about why you're sharing it, if it's coming out of love or judgment. Does that make sense? Yeah.
My initial interpretation was also that others may look at the position that you were in a confused way or an annoyed way or judgmental way because they do not believe that the way that you're acting is necessary. But again, it's important to be conscious of each person's individual place in their life, in their journey. So I always like to talk about this metaphor because it just helps me understand things so much. You'll probably know what I'm about to say. It's so memorable and it's so tangible to me because it's about the physical seasons that we go through. So we cannot judge others. Imagine that I'm in a season of spring, or you're in a season of spring, and the flowers are blossoming, the birds are chirping, bees are buzzing, and I'm looking at someone else and being like, I don't see the fruit in your life. I don't see why you're in this season of winter per se, where it's dull and there's no flowers blooming. It seems like there's no fruit. I like to think of that metaphor because it helps me remember that everyone is, I'm just speaking redundantly now. Everyone's at a different point in their life.
I love it. No, I love it.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, again, like, we're going to be at all completely different timelines with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, that's important to know.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard. Honestly, I have been there with where, I don't like saying this word, so I'll probably cut it out, but where I've had, like, lukewarm Christians when I'm trying to get out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes things that I say would come out of judgment because I'm like, my heart would judge a little because I'm like, well, how did the Lord get them out of that deep hole? And now they're trying to find God. I don't know. I was definitely at a place like that when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, an example, like, an OnlyFans star was like,
Christian.
I want to be Christian now.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard so much to give love when you don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important to acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And you will learn how to have his heart once you keep knowing him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
that's so valid.
But
and I like how you said it's hard not to judge when you don't understand. And that's the part where you just have to trust that God's moving in their life and changing their heart the way that he is, and your heart and your life and your journey is different.
And sometimes you could judge because you've been there. Just like, you know how sometimes you can get so annoyed of teenagers because I'm like, I was that little spoiled little brat before. So I don't like it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's me at work sometimes. I was you before.
Yeah.
And I hated it.
Yeah.
So you could look back at someone that was at a timeline where you were and you could be like, judging. But no judgment. Just love. We are called to give love and peace.
Mm-hmm. And that, so then I just want to jump to verse 13.
Yeah.
Where it says, let us stop passing judgment on one another. Instead, make up your mind not to put any stumbling block or obstacle in the way of your brother and sister. Mm-hmm. So my interpretation of that was that some things may be okay or not. Some things may be okay or not, or a struggle for you in that circumstance, but it's a stumbling block for someone else. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, okay, someone else might claim and say, this isn't okay for me. And I'm like, well, it's fine for me. So, like, I'm not really going to cater to you. Mm-hmm. Like, I can think of a real world example. Like, someone's like, I don't drink. I believe it's wrong. Mm-hmm. Whatever. And I'm like, well, I think it's fine. So I'm just going to order a bunch of drinks, or even a few, and inherently that doesn't seem wrong. And society would also say that we're not responsible for someone else's like convictions or how they're feeling, and that it isn't necessary. Yeah, but I believe we are meant to care for each other and take on each other's responsibility and help each other and build each other up, especially people in the church. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, not only do you need to keep that judgment to yourself and give it to God, but also actively work with that person if they are living in a conviction that you don't understand or you don't get. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You can meet them on their level. And that goes back to verse 1 where it says, accept those whose faith is weak without quarreling over disputable matters. It's a gray area. It's not inherently wrong to have a drink or whatever, but if they think it's wrong, then it is wrong for them because God has called them away from that. Mm-hmm. This is definitely something that is close to home for me because I have like justified drinking or just being in that sort of culture for so long, and I still struggle with it. And it's a thing that I'm learning to shed. That's my new word. We're shedding. God takes away things and sometimes he sheds things. Mm-hmm. And so work together. Society would say it's not, if they want to do that, whatever, you don't need to worry about it. But like, no, imagine someone's like, you know what? you feel that way, okay, let's sit here and let's have a virgin mojito. That'd be great. That would be great, and that would be so loving.
Yeah,
and that's
definitely.
Yeah. It goes
100%.
along with the verse 19. And am I cutting you off a thought?
No.
Okay. So let us therefore make every effort to do what leads to peace and to mutual edification.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done talking now about this.
Yeah, I was just gonna add on to what you were saying. Was I agree. I think it is important that you surround yourself around a community and friends that won't give you a stumbling block.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's really hard to find.
I think, yeah, it is really hard to find, because sometimes you want to be selfish, be like, well, I have fun there, so I want to go to the bar. Mm-hmm. But it could be somebody else's conviction. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. And it's so nice to care for each other in that way.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can go talk about the context now.
Yes. Context of Romans 14.
Yes. And it can help us just have a deeper understanding of what we're talking about here. Last section. So, yes. Yeah, so this chapter, okay, actually, disclaimer, I am no historian. I haven't been to Bible college. I'm making excuses. I don't know that much about the context of this other than just like what I've just researched since reading it. I haven't read any deep theological essays. I've just pretty much done internet research. Yeah, it's not super deep, but I mean, what I found I believe is accurate. I did look through a bunch of sites. Look into it yourself if you would like. Yes. But yeah, so it's titled The Weak and the Strong. And it's actually talking about Jewish people versus Gentiles. And it's talking about Jewish people as the weak because they hold tight to their customs, traditions, rituals. And the Gentiles is anyone who is
not Jew.
Yeah, not Jew, non-Israelite, not necessarily non-Christian, but just not of the bloodline of Jesus. So yeah, Jewish people really held to their moral law and self-righteousness, and they were like, well, we're from the bloodline of Jesus, so we're just already part of this tree of life. We're already kind of saved, and our laws save us. Whereas Gentiles, anyone who's basically adopted into the family tree. So think of a family tree, okay? All the Jews are in the family tree of Jesus. All of the Gentiles are not. But when they give their life to Christ, they're grafted in. They're adopted into this tree of life. So their faith their belief comes from faith and being grafted in, and from love. So, okay, so basically, in order to understand the beginning verses where it was talking about, those of you who eat meat or those of you who eat vegetables, it's basically talking about kosher versus unkosher Jews. So those who eat certain types of meat and those who don't. Those who do eat certain types of meat and those who don't. The Jews would Jewish people abide by an old law, the law of Moses, where he gives all of these, the 10 Commandments are part of that, but these old laws on principle and sin and repentance, and it is pre-Christ. So at this point in time, presently, the old law has been fulfilled. The old law is not something that we need to live by, and it's not something that we are bound to. So, but there's
their religion.
Their religion. So they believe they're saved by their religion, by their law, rather than the sacrifice that God made through Jesus, where he made the final sacrifice, and we are no longer bound to that law and the consequence.
The relationship with God.
Yes. So when it says if your brother or sister is distressed because of what you eat, Paul is saying that he believes there is no food that is deemed unclean by God anymore, but some still have not reached that point of believing that. So as that verse says, if your brother or sister is distressed because of what you eat, you are no longer acting in love. I can say to someone, I'm going to eat this, and I'm going to tell you that it's not unclean to eat, and I'm speaking in truth, but I'm lacking in love. And so my word is empty or fruitless or worthless, right? I'm not working together with that person. So.
And that doesn't mean that there's a right or wrong.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's a gray area.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is
annoying. I know. But it's so interesting how the Jews are the weak, and the Gentiles are the strong. Yeah. And I think it's so important to prioritize that relationship with the Lord though over the religion. Because it's not about the law, it's about love.
It's not about what we eat or what we drink.
Or what we do, what we say.
But we humans like boxes. And we'll say, that's right, and that's wrong, and that's it. But it's not that simple, and that's why we need so much grace with each other and from God. So annoying.
Yeah. But with that context, you can really interpret it to so many different things. Not just food.
Yes. So many things. Sorry, I just went down a deep rabbit hole explaining this. So those who are free or don't have necessarily these tight convictions. Oh yeah, that's right. This is something I definitely want to talk about really quick. Okay. Those who have weaker faith or tighter convictions where they're relying more on law or religion, those people should not be putting restrictions on others to saying you should do this or you shouldn't do that. And those who have more freedom in their faith should not place their freedom as a priority over someone else's convictions by trying to get someone to loosen their grip. We're not trying to convince each other of things, because I think that only just makes us feel better about where we are. If I can convince you to be on the same page as me, then I know that I'm okay, then I know that I'm on the right track, instead of just trusting where you are with God and where he has you at that moment.
We're not supposed to force our convictions on other people. Yeah.
Which is hard because you want to talk about it, and that's fine, but you can't, convince someone of that.
That's why it's important to keep them to yourself.
Yeah. The goal with anyone at any stage of their journey is unity and peace. And just as I read just a description of this verse, it said that we need to set aside our freedom to promote peace and unity and build up the church instead of tearing it down. And I feel like we've just been in such a season of growing in the church, but that comes with comparing ourselves to people and trying to figure out if where we are is okay, and trusting other people's opinions on it rather than trusting God's. So this was just a really nice reminder that we all need to trust God. The people who are having these convictions and the people who are at a different stage and who are more free and comfortable with the sacrifice that Jesus made. Yeah. Last thing that we want to talk about, last thing that we want to share.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's important that, we talk about these topics on this podcast, and I think it's important that everyone knows we don't ever want people to think that we're telling you how to live the right or wrong way. We are so perfect and you guys aren't. We're not perfect. We struggle through things too, and we're still going through trials. We're still going to learn things as we go. I just don't want, we want to be transparent with you guys with our struggles and with things that we go through, because I think that is really important when you're trying to live a life for Christ.
Yeah. I like how you said that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So we wanted to be transparent and talk about some things that we've been struggling with. Or something that we struggled with.
Something that was apparently under the surface. We've made a lot of changes in our life. We were feeling pretty comfortable where we were. And I think we were just starting to realize how comfortable we were to a point where, like, I came and told you, wow, things are going really well. I feel like I need something, literally said, I feel like I need something bad to happen so that I can, like, feel God again. And that is
We can take you out of that hole.
Yeah, I just want to have this experience again with Christ. And that's like I'm not going to label that a bad desire. I want to feel Christ, but I wanted to feel it in this way where it's just a toxic
it's like
thing.
when you're in a relationship and everything's doing so good, so you get kind of bored. You're like, I kind of want to start something right now.
Yeah, that's literally what I said.
Yeah. And I agreed with her. And
like, that's, like, oh, it's kind of funny.
We both thought that. We thought it, honestly, after that, I kind of just brushed it off. Didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
Didn't focus on it. Didn't pray about it. I don't know if you did, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a couple days after, we
were also struggling with lust.
Yeah, well, didn't know that till the day of. Well, yeah, we did.
Okay, I brought it to you.
Yes.
And I said, listen, I'm just having some thoughts. I'm just airing it out right now. I was just having some thoughts, and I feel like I'm kind of justifying them because, I've been celibate for this certain period of time. So I feel like I'm doing well, but I'm having these thoughts and I just don't know what to do with them. I don't know if it's okay because I've been doing so well. Like, anyways, just these little things that were creeping in that had a root.
Yeah, and what I will say is that we put ourselves in a bad situation where we didn't think of God once.
I know, so it wasn't intentional.
It wasn't intentional.
We were just safe and comfortable.
Yeah, we were just comfortable and let it get way too comfortable to the point we got tempted. And I think it's
failed to resist everything.
Yeah. Think of
No, we're not going to go into detail because
no, we're not. I was just gonna say as a joke. I was like, think of every sin that just no. But anyways, we just threw all our progress out the window. But yeah, it's important to talk about. You don't have your Bible on you, do you?
It's at church. I left it at church. Okay. But here, I don't need my phone anymore.
Okay. I don't have to read the verse, but I just wanted to read James 1. It's called Testing of Our Faith. I don't have the verse with me, but I wanted to share my reflection on it.
Okay, that's fine.
And then if you want to share the verse after?
James 1?
Yeah, James 1. God will test us, but never tempt us. Tests are for us to grow, while temptations lead us to sin. I feel like reading this, what I understood was temptations can stem from not trusting God's plan for us. We always want to take matters into our own hands. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard sometimes, leaning on God's understanding and not on yours. But His grace is the proof of His love to us. Our obedience is the proof of our love to Him. And the desire is the root of sin. The devil tempts us, but he doesn't make us sin. James tells us that God isn't to blame God doesn't tempt us to sin, but he will allow tests to strengthen us. God doesn't lead me to evil, and neither does the devil. I am responsible for where I go and what I do. I chose to follow my own will and not God's. It was James 1:12-14 was what I was reading. But when it's important to know that when you feel tempted, you shouldn't, like, you don't have the mindset of God is tempting me, because he doesn't do that. Yeah. Yeah, God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each person is tempted. When they're dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed, then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. I think something that I was understanding too was the difference between temptation and sin. The temptation to sin and active sinning. Everyone experiences temptations. It's important to know the difference, especially if we struggle with feelings of shame or discouragement when we face temptation. Yeah, and sometimes you could have the same. Sometimes the enemy will make you feel very shamed and guilty, even from being tempted, than from falling temptation. But it's so important to not let the enemy take control of those feelings and focus on it so much, but also important to not justify the sin or feeling tempted, because you need to learn and grow from it. And it's important.
I want you to just keep going. I love what you said about how the devil just wants to keep you in like that despair. And like it's crazy because like it was bad. It was really bad. But there's joy in love, and there's joy in the way that we know that God forgives us and loves us through this. And that's amazing. But the enemy, will try and make you hate yourself for what you did, and make you believe things about yourself that aren't true. Like you'll never amount to anything. You'll never be able to like crawl your way back out of this. This is who you are. People are judging you. Just like all of these horrible things. But you're right. Like,
and we did feel, we were really down for a few days, and suffering through those consequences. But I also wanted to read Hebrews 4-15. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. It's important, the discipline and self-control to train ourselves spiritually and overcome the temptations of the world and power of demons is one of the hardest things. It's so important to come to God and receiving his mercy. Jesus was tempted in every way and he did not sin. The only way to receive his mercy is through approaching him. When we fail, we can go to God with confidence, knowing he will not only forgive us, but provide grace to help us overcome temptation next time. And you gotta like keep that in your head. Like you could just,
you have to believe that.
You have to believe that. You have to really believe that and trust him. And it goes back to submitting everything to the Lord and just trusting him. And not justifying that sin, but going to him with it, and you just forgive yourself and he will forgive you.
And even if you don't forgive yourself, he still forgives you. But
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
But submit yourselves to God. And sometimes it's hard to resist the devil, but with his will, we can. With God's will.
With his will and his strength.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. But it is, I truly believe that it is submission to God that helps us to resist the enemy. Because if we give it all, we give everything. As soon as you have these lustful feelings, as soon as you have these like sinful feelings, give it to God. Tell him to cast them away. Pray about it. And it is hard, and it's important to talk about it. I think everyone struggles with lust. It's one of those sins that it's hard to wrap your head around that it is a sin. Like, it's one of those ones that is the hardest one, at least for me personally. But yeah, struggling with lust, it can root from desires or actually, so weird. At church we went to the prayer group, and the guy that was praying for me was mentioning that sometimes the root of desires can come from the way that you were raised, like with a lack of a father or a lack of a mother or not enough love shown. So
and the devil uses those, and
the devil
uses you in your vulnerability.
Those. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, it is the courage of God that helps us to resist the devil. The submission to God, and the victory starts from finding, knowing, and then continually seeking God.
Finding, knowing, continually seeking.
Yeah. God gives us the power to resist. And I want to fully submit myself to the Lord in every aspect of my life, my work, relationships, family, my own time. How I think about sin and temptation matters. It is not a sin to experience temptation. Whether I sin depends on how I respond to the temptation. I will fight the discouragement thoughts that come with being tempted and hold to the victory I have in Christ. And that was just like in my head. And yeah, it was a hard few days, but I just wanted to be transparent with you guys that we're not perfect. We get tempted, we sin sometimes, but seeking God through everything, every aspect in your life is so important. And we're still working on it. We will continuously work on it. But it's a progress for sure.
Agreed. I honestly could not have said any of that better myself. And the part where in James where it says the birth or the desire. After desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. So take those thoughts captive as soon as you can, because it just starts with a little desire. Just like, just a thought. And then that gives birth to sin. So just be on your guard. The verse for me that I was focusing on is 1 Peter 5:8, where it says, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of sufferings." So being alert, being aware, not pushing those things off to the side. That's what the enemy wants you to do. Like, he wants you to say, I'll deal with that later, or I'll think about that later. I don't really have time for that right now. Just don't prioritize it. But be alert and sober of mind. So.
Yeah, really important. And give those desires to the Lord. Everything. That's really important. If you can count how many times I've said important in this podcast. It's probably been like 100 times.
Important. So important. It's so important.
If you guys have any prayer requests, please DM us or message us. because we want to know how we could pray for you guys.
And any questions,
Mm-hmm.
or just share where you're at in your journey right now, and guaranteed someone's been there or will be there, and we can just build each other up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for watching.
Thank you so much.
It's probably really dark right now.
It's fine.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.